Good morning, everybody. It's nice and early this morning. Sun just came up. This morning I'm going to read If I Ran a Zoo by Dr. Seuss. This is quite a tongue twister, so hang in there with me. It's a pretty good zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, and the fellow who runs it seems proud of it too. But if I ran the zoo, said young Gerald McGrew, I'd make a few changes. Here's what I'd do. The lions and tigers and that kind of stuff they have up here now are not quite good enough. You see things like these in just any old zoo, they're awfully old-fashioned. I want something new. I'd open each cage, I'd unlock every pen, let the animals go, and I'd start over again. And somehow or other, I think I could find some beasts of a much more unusual kind. I let all the animals go. Four-footed lion's not much of a beast. The one in my zoo will have 10 feet at least. 5 legs on the left and 5 more on the right. When people will stare, they'll say, "What a sight! This new keeper, Gerald's quite keen. That's the gall-darndest lion I have ever seen." That's a cool lion. Would you go see one of those at the zoo? My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people talk. My new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will make people gawk at the strangest odd creatures that ever did walk. I'll get for my zoo a new sort of hen who roosts in another hen's top knot, and then another one roosts in the top knot of his, and another in his, and another in his, and so forth, and upward and onward. Gee whiz! See, look, they're all sitting on top of each other's hair. But that was just a start. I'll do better than that. They'll see me next day in my zookeeper's hat coming into my zoo with an elephant cat. Look at that, an elephant cat. They'll be so surprised, they'll all swallow their gum. They'll ask when they see my strange animals come, where do you suppose he gets things like that? His animals all have such odd faces. I'll bet he must hunt them in rather odd places. Cool. Where do you think he's gonna go hunt for some animals? Dr. Seuss goes to some weird places. And that is what I'll do, said young Gerald McGrew. If you want to catch beasts you don't see every day, you have to go to places quite out of the way. You have to go to places no others can get to. You have to get cold and you have to get wet too. Up past the North Pole where the frozen winds squeal, I'll go and I'll hunt in my Skeaglemobile and bring back a family of what do you know, and that's how my new zoo, McGrew Zoo, will grow. All right. Wow, he's got some odd characters. I'll hunt in the mountains of Zomba Motant with helpers who wear their eyes at a slant and capture a fine fluffy bird called the bustard, who only eats custard with a sauce made of mustard, and also a very fine beast called the flustered, who only eats mustard with a sauce made of custard. Whew. There are some rhyming words in there. How do we know a word rhymes, class? When what is the same? When the endings are the same. We have lots of rhyming words in there. I'll catch them in caves, I'll catch them in books, I'll catch them in crannies, I'll catch them in nooks. They won't even read about in geography books. I'll catch them in countries that no one can spell, like the country of Mortafalpel. In a country like that, if a hunter is clever, he'll beat up some beasts that you never saw ever. I'll load up 5 boats with a family of josts, whose feet are like cows but wear squirrel skin coats, and sit down like dogs but have voices like goats, excepting they can't sing those very high notes. And I'll go down to the wilds of Nantucket and capture a family of lunks in a bucket. Then people will say, now I like that boy heaps, this new zoo, McGrew's zoo, it grows by leaps. He captures them wild, he captures them meek, he captures them slim, he captures them sleek. What do you suppose he will capture next week? That's cool, he's adding all these cool animals to his zoo. If you ran a zoo, would you try and find unusual animals? I'll capture one tiny, I'll capture one cute. I'll capture a deer that no hunter would shoot. A deer that's so nice he could sleep in your bed if it weren't for all those horns he has on his head. Look at that. That thing's got a lot of horns on his head, huh? There's the zoo. New zoo, McGrew Zoo. And speaking of horns that are just a bit queer, I'll bring back a very odd family of deer. A father, a mother, a sister, a brother, whose horns are connected to one another, whose horns are so mixed that they can't tell them apart, can't tell where they end, can't tell where they start. Each deer mighty puzzled, he's never found yet if his horns are hers or the other way around. Look at those horns, those are all connected. I'll capture them fat, I'll capture them scrawny, I'll capture a scraggle-footed mulligatawny, a high-stepping animal fast as the wind from the blistering sands of the desert of Zend. This beast is the beast that the brave chieftains ride when they want to go fast and find some place to hide. Mulligatawny is fine for the zoo, and so is a chieftain. I'll bring one back too. Look at all those cool things he's gonna have in his zoo. At the far western part, at the southeast North Dakota, lives a very fine animal called an iota. But I'll capture one who is even much finer in the southwestern part of South Carolina. When people see him, they will say, now, by thunder, this is a new zoo, McGrew Zoo. It's quite a wonder. Look at all the cool stuff he's gonna find put in his zoo. Most beasts are quite friendly, but still, in some lands, some beasts are too dangerous to catch with bare hands. For those that are ugly and vicious and mean, I'll build a bad animal catching machine. It's rather expensive to build such a kit, but with it, a hunter can never get bit. Look at there, he's getting something to trap the animals if they're mean or wild. A zoo should have bugs, so I'll capture a thwarl whose legs are snarled up in a terrible snarl. And then I'll go out and I'll capture some chugs, some keen shooter, mean shooter, bean shooting bugs. Look at those bugs, they're shooting beans at each other. And there's an animal with their legs in a snarl. I'll go to the African island of Yurka and I'll bring back a twizzle-top tuft mazurka, a kind of canary with quite a tall throat. His neck is so long, if he swallows an oat for breakfast the first day of April, they'll say it has to go down such a long, long way. Then it gets to his stomach on the 15th of May. That's a long neck, look at that. All the way down. I'll bag a big bug who's very surprised, a feller who has a propeller for rising and zooming around, making cross-country hops from Texas to Boston with only 2 stops. Now that sort of thing for bugs is just tops. There. That's pretty cool. And when I've caught him, then the next thing you know, I'll go and I'll capture a wild tic-tac-toe. With X's that win and with zeros that lose, he looks mighty good in this zoo of McGrews. Look there, you can see his tic-tac-toe belly. I'll bring back a gusset, a gherkin, a gasket, and also a grooch from the wilds of Nantucket. And 8 Persian princes will carry the basket, but with their names are, I do not know, so I'll just ask it. Look at all that cool stuff he's bringing back to the zoo. In a cave in Khartoum lives a beast called the Natch that no other hunter has been able to catch. He's hidden for years in his cave with a pout, and no one's been able to make him come out. I'll coax him out with a wonderful meal that's cooked by my cooks in my cooker-mobile. Look at that. They're gonna lure him out with some food. They'll fix up a dish that is just to his taste. 3 chicken croquets made of library paste. Then sprinkle with peanut, shucks, pickled and spiced, then bake at 600 degrees and then iced. It's mighty hard cooking to cook up such feasts, but that's how New Zoo McGrew Zoo gets beasts. There, so he's cooking him some food. I'll go to the faraway mountains of Tobska near the river of Nobska, and I'll bring back an Obska, a sort of a kind of thingamabooska, who only eats rhubarb and corn on the kabuska. When people who flock to my zoo in a muska, McGrew, they'll say, does a wonderful jabuska. He hunts with such vim and he hunts with such vigor. His new zoo, McGrew Zoo, gets bigger and bigger. Look at those silly things. Who can barely say them? And he has them in his zoo. And speaking of birds, there's a Russian Polsky whose head ski is red ski and his belly is blue ski. I'll get one of them for my Zooski Magrewski. Look at that. Whew. When the whole town will gasp, why this boy never sleeps. No keeper before ever kept what he keeps. There's no telling what this young fellow will do. And then, just to show them, I'll sail to Katru and bring back an itich, preep, a pro, a knurkle, a nerd, and a seersucker too. Look at all those weird things he's gonna bring back. I'll hunt the jungles of Hipponohungus and bring back a flock of wild Biponobungus. The Biponobungus from Hipponohungus are better than those down in Diponodungus and smarter than those in Nipponohungus. And that's why I'll catch them in Hipponohungus instead of the ones in Nippononugungus. And people will say when they see these bips bouncy, the zookeeper, new keeper, simply astounding. He travels so far that you'd think he would drop. What do you suppose, when do you suppose this new fellow will stop? Look at all that stuff he found for his zoo. Stop? Well, I should. Why, I won't stop until I've captured a Fizzamadil, the world's largest bird from the island of Gok, who only eats pine trees and spits out the bark. And boy, when I get him back home to my park, the whole world will say, young McGrew's made his mark. He built a zoo better than Noah's whole ark. Those wonderful, marvelous beasts he chooses have made him the greatest of all McGrewses. What do you think? Would you go to that zoo? Kind of fun. McGrew's Zoo. Wow, they'll all cheer. That must be what this zoo must be worth. It's a gall darndest zoo on the face of the earth. Look at all that zoo. Yes, that's what I'll do, said young Mr. McGrew. I'll make a few changes if I ran that zoo. What would you do if you ran a zoo? What kind of animals would you have in your zoo? Bye.